fitness is what's going to dictate a lot of things on race day, but it's your execution and your effort that are going to be the ultimate kind of outliers in a great day or an average day, because you don't never know how your body's going to respond. It's about who you are and who's driving that fitness, a person making good decisions or a person making bad decisions. And so in the last few workouts leading up to a race, you can end a run or end a ride and say, Coach, I nailed it. Meaning I nailed the execution.
What's up, buddy?
Welcome to the Crushing Iron Triathlon Podcast, episode 296. That is episode 296.
Thank you.
Hey man, what's up? Yeah, I thought we would take 2 seconds to sound like, the majority of other triathlon podcasts. But hey, that is not what we are, or what we try our best, I guess, not to strive to be. But yeah, hey man, it's Thursday. It is, August 22nd. We are a few weeks out from Ironman Wisconsin, and this is the Crushing Iron Podcast. Hey man, we appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, we do. I am doing Ironman Wisconsin. You are coaching me, and that has kind of been the MO for this podcast all along. Well, it's where it started, the age group as coach.
It is kind of, you know what? I don't even think about that sometimes. But yeah, we definitely cover our share of triathlon and training, race recaps, the occasional interview. But really, we do our best to talk to you about triathlon and training and how it intersects with life, and hopefully how they complement each other. And we do our best to share our experiences and hopefully guide you down different paths, and that maybe can allow you to skip some of the pitfalls and obstacles Mike and I have both come across ourselves as athletes and also coaches over the last 7 or 8 years. But yeah, our journey started as complete strangers about 6 years ago.
Yeah, probably
coach
7.
7 years ago, to coach you to your first Ironman, which was Ironman Wisconsin. We'll be back revisiting in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from this weekend. I'm super pumped. I cannot wait to visit. I love the town. I raced there with you 3 years ago. 3 years ago, when Hayden was just born. Love the city, love the race. It's a great venue. It is one of the best supported races I've ever been at, everywhere. It probably, as much as I love the Louisville finish line, as much as there are some other great courses in Texas, really kind of took me for a loop this last April when I went down to visit, and how awesome the swim and the run were spectator friendly. As far as a course goes, from point A to point Z at the finish, of all the races I've ever been to, Wisconsin has the most consistent spectatorship, if that's even a word, throughout the course of the day. Whether it's the incredible swim venue start and the amount of people you can see lined up around the helix as you run into transition into T1, people cheering for you out, people who make their way out into town to catch you on the loops and on the different hills, and even the sisters. It is jam-packed. It is a great course, and then the run course is just as awesome. There are, as usual, some quiet places in the run, but that's just the nature of 26.2 miles. You're going to have some quiet space, but one of my favorite moments in racing is turning that corner at the state capitol and making your way towards the finish line to finish. It's one of the coolest feelings, and I'm excited for all the athletes that we have racing and all of our listeners, especially the ones who have never done that race. It really is. It's a special place and a special venue, and I know you and I are both excited to be back.
Yeah, I for sure am. I keep thinking about that too. That last turn onto State Street is really what kind of always sinks in for me, or that's the one I remember. And you kind of go up that little hill at the end and then go around the Capitol and around and around and around, and then you get back there. So,
and
yeah.
You can still hear my voice yelling at you from a half mile away from around that corner.
Yeah.
I had about lost this is again 7 years ago. I was there coaching and a couple guys, and you were making your way and chugging your way along, and you were inching ever so closely to going sub 12 in your very first one on a very difficult and fair course. And I remember yelling, kind of like I did yelling at you at Chattanooga 70.3 this last year, but I was hoarse. I remember yelling at you, but yeah, I remember that day vividly. And again, if you're just going in general, just to even spectate, it's a blast. There are so many things to do, and I think anytime Ironman or any race can find themselves smack dab in the middle of a college town, they're doing good. Because there's so many things to do, so many sites to see. I think I even read somewhere like the last week or two where University of Wisconsin was rated the best overall campus in America.
Campus, wow.
Yeah,
No, I don't know about that. I think it wasn't that college football town thing, or
same thing. I mean, that's what people
oh,
think.
okay.
They think W. I mean, they think the atmosphere in the campus. But to be fair, we're talking football just for a quick second. We're not going to dive into it that much, but that is without question my least favorite part of the event.
Oh, really?
Is doing that random ass lap in the stadium.
Yeah.
Because you got to go. It's kind of odd because there's like this little dip of a hill, and you're like, really, come on, I can barely pick up my feet. Now I got to go waddle my way in around the football field just to say I did.
Mm-hmm.
It is a nice respite though from the pounding of the concrete to get on a little bit of turf. But anyway, I digress. It's a great overall event. Excited to be there. We're doing some exciting things at the race that we'll talk about towards the end of the podcast. But back to our regularly scheduled program. We appreciate you joining us again, and we hope you continue to do so. Dive back into the archives. We're getting close to 300.
Getting close. Yeah, what a grind.
I was just about to say, what a grind. I kind of texted you before the show, and we don't ever really do that. But I was kind of wondering if you had a topic for today, and you seem like you're at your limit. Have you reached like maximum capacity of the grind of the Ironman training grind, and you're like, this is it. The end is near. I'm mentally, emotionally, and physically at my max. It's time to rein it in.
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, it's I don't want to say that I'm getting physically certainly close, and I think the tough part is just like it sort of just starts snowballing and gets to the end, and even though you're 2 weeks away and you probably get into your taper and there will be recovery, it's just a mental grinder of the thought process, because it's hard to get anything else going in your head, and that's the biggest challenge always for me. Is it's whether you're doing your first or you're kind of trying to do your 10th and you want to get better. I mean, and we talked about that last time. It's just getting better is the point, but you always, like, when race comes around, you're kind of like, man, I had a good run about 2 weeks ago. Can this be the so you always got that in the back of your mind, and you're kind of like, why not me? Why can't I do that? You hear about it all the time. What's that little secret sauce where people kind of come out of nowhere and have a really good race? And you want to have a good race, and you don't want to try to have a good race. So it's a weird.
You want to let it. It is. It's such a fascinating phenomenon, really, in terms of just like the process of the day. But even in reaching this capacity of the grind. The athletes that that you and I both work with, this is this last day, and then got a couple athletes doing some longer stuff this weekend, but it's on really well rested legs, so it's really more about kind of fine tuning things. But and I posted this in our active athlete closed group, because I think oftentimes we forget this, and this is also what makes this transition phase from tiredness to freshness kind of difficult. Is that the past 4, 5, 6 weeks, however long it is, or if you're about to go into a big block for a race, you've just come out of one, you're not doing Wisconsin, you're doing something else, it could be for any distance, is that fatigue masks fitness. And I think what happens these last few weeks when you become so tired, you see these glimpses of fitness kind of even just break through the fatigue to kind of like what you were kind of alluding to. It's like give you that sign of like, hey, I think I got this. And then it's a good feeling. It's fleeting because you're so tired, and the amount of volume you're doing is continuing to accumulate, and the fatigue's accumulating, and you're not ready to shed it yet. It just kind of peeks its head around the corner. You don't really get a good look at it. You just kind of feel it, and then it goes away. And then, but you have at least that one small feeling of, you know what, I kind of got this. And then you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, and look about how many drops in the bucket, how many hours, how many sessions, how many hard days, how many things you overcome in the meantime. And then the difficult part now becomes, and this is like what I hear from a lot of athletes, is like the first like 4 or 5 days of the actual like big taper. So like athletes that are doing Wisconsin this next week that I work with, like they've got like most of them have like an easy day today and tomorrow, and then different rides and runs over the weekend. But then next week or 2 weeks out is kind of usually my minimum spot for taper, is that the first 4 or 5 days, when they're not doing all that work and they can sleep a little bit when the body catches up, their first thought is, oh my gosh, I hope I'm not peaking too soon.
Losing it.
Yeah, because it's a funny, feel, because you've been so tired that now just getting back to like your regular training, like homeostasis of like, I feel okay. Now your okay feels like I can move mountains. And so you start to question, like, am I peaking too early? Maybe got to keep things sharper. Maybe go a little extra bit on my run or my ride. But what you want to do is you want to get back to okay, and then you want to just totally unload even more that following week to where you're so fresh, you're going to feel awesome. And again, as we've talked about on many a podcast, like the taper is such a tricky mind game in that it plays games with you, because your body goes from this day-to-day phase of I just got to make it through and I've got to adapt quickly, and I don't really have time to repair a ton. I just have time to adapt and strengthen and get stronger and get ready to go longer and harder and recover faster. That once you like give it a couple days of, hey Mike, these next 2 days are pretty easy, your body's like, whoa. I see an opening here. It's time to recover. And so your body starts to work in all these like magical ways of repairing your body, and it puts energy towards that. You burn energy to recover. I think sometimes we forget about that. So you need to fuel properly and sleep more. And so you have these taper pains or these phantom niggles that kind of pop up. And it's like you haven't hurt all season. All of a sudden you lighten your load and you're like, dude, coach, I got like this hammy thing. I'm like, no, you didn't. Your body. That's just taper pains, taper phantom pains, and then you just want to go in the race being super fresh. I've never heard anybody say, I think I went into that Ironman a little too fresh. I finished that run. I was like, man, I wish I had really hit it. 70.3, different story, because again, it's a different intensity level. You want to stay sharp, and sometimes a harder taper or a shorter taper sometimes can benefit people. But yeah, it's an interesting time to be in. I think that's what gets people so excited is the end is near, but then it's that dauntingness of like, now that you've made it through the grind, now again, like we covered this a few weeks ago, so I won't touch on it again, but it's like then like the freedom of time and like the psychological and physical games your body and mind will play on you can be some of the hardest ones to overcome in the course of your training.
Yeah, for sure. It's yeah, you got all this stuff. You start thinking about, making sure you're going to bring the right stuff and what have you. And it looks like, yeah, it just can't get here quick enough. But the time is so necessary, because like what you were talking about, the recovery takes energy. So that is really a good time to kind of settle down and start getting that sleep and eating right. And that can be hard. A lot of people get super hungry and just go way off the rails too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that necessarily that they're getting hungrier. It's that the level and increase of their metabolism and its requirements to kind of rebuild their muscle and recover and prepare themselves for these usual like long days, it's not there anymore. But your body doesn't know that. It's still churning at such a high rate that you're going to become just as so. Frequency is always king. Frequency in snacks. Not waiting till like not skipping a breakfast, which is just idiotic. But eating in the morning, to top off those glycogen stores, eating small snacks with it, so you don't get so hungry that your first choice, which most people's like, oh, I'm so hungry, like I shouldn't have waited this long. Let me choose something very simple and healthy to eat. No, most people like eat way too much, and then that's when you eat more than your body needs. But if you snack just like you normally should, your body's going to take what it needs and get rid of the rest. And so that's something that you kind of got to be aware of. But I can't stress enough to athletes that are currently going through a taper, they're going to go through one soon, or have never been through one, is use that. I always recommend just sleep in. even if you're a person who has to, move all their workouts to the evening and you don't normally do that, sleep in. Like, don't set an alarm during your taper to get up early unless you absolutely 100% have to. The sessions are going to be shorter, but sleep in. Get all the sleep that you need. And as much as and I think this is also like one of the hardest things for athletes is that as type A as they feel like they have to be 24/7 and they have to stick to a schedule, they have to do this, and they have to do that. The taper is the part in getting away from that grind and is of being in a routine, and you're mentally and emotionally engaged every single day. Everything has a purpose. The taper, while it has a purpose and everything is specific, you've got to be flexible. You have to be flexible on the days. Either cut it short, skip it. Don't ever move it. Just skip it. If you're feeling really, really tired, still sleep in. Like especially that first week of a 2-week taper, you really want to get things back. Now, again, I wouldn't recommend cutting out the intensity. If you had like an hour-long session with like 30 minutes of intensity, I would just cut the warm-up and cool down a little bit to lower the total volume, but keep the intensity because you don't want your body to go to sleep. You just want it to recover. So you want to keep that intensity, and then that last week, you just need to be basically on like Monday or Tuesday, being like, "Hey, coach, can we go already?" Yeah. Like, is it time to get married? Is it time to graduate? Is it time to race this Ironman? Can we go and get this over with? I'm just ready to go. Mm-hmm. And that's what you need to feel like then, and still be flexible and get off your feet, and use that weekend, before the big race, before any kind of race, where your volume is so much lower. Spend some extra time with the family, but then like that normal time where now you're spending 2 hours on your bike instead of 6 or 5, whatever it is. Use that time to go ahead and get ahead of the game. Get ahead of the days leading up to the race. So go ahead and get out go to your spare guest room or whatever, go down to your pain cave or basement, garage, whatever, and start lining up your stuff. Put them in Ziploc bags, put them away, get them all, because like it's not going to be stressful because it's so far away. But if you can go ahead and do it and at least get most of it out of the way before, and have it basically all packed that way. Because to me, as much as I think the absolute worst part of any Ironman is having to go get your bike afterwards. It's the worst thing. And you and I are working on a concierge service for that. But I love the fact that you have to drop everything off the day before, because after that's done, you're like, dude, what do I got? Like, I got my swim stuff. That's it. Like, that's great, because like you roll up to a 70.3 and you're like packed and loaded, what it looks like for like a 4-week backpack trip. So yeah. What I love about the Ironman distance in that day before is just to get rid of all that stuff and get it away. So if you know what's going to go in your special needs bags, if you know what's going to go in, and especially I think from a nutritional standpoint, because I can't tell you how many times, I'm going to take a quick commercial. I've decided to stand up for this podcast because I'm tired of sitting, and I feel like it's really raised my energy level. So if I'm talking way too fast, I apologize.
Okay, I might try that here.
Yeah, I'm going up like the standing desk version. I can't tell you how many times I've athletes text me on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday before a huge race, like, "Coach, I'm out of my nutrition." I'm like, you didn't like notice you were scraping the barrel last weekend? Another great reason to get ahead and pre-pack your nutrition in either Ziploc bags or what you're going to put in your special needs bags for your bike and your run. Do it the weekend before. That way the most important nutrition you have for the entire week, which is going to be on Saturday or Sunday for your race, is done, it's allocated, and it's not going to be spent. Everything else you can kind of do what you need to do with or get by for some reason. You're running low. So get those in their Ziploc bags, get things out of the way, pack, plan, put things in, again, Ziploc bags, and just mark them, with the, some black, like, permanent marker. And like, this is my, bike or my morning clothes bag. This is going to be my T1 bag, my T2 bag. And even though you're going to need some of that stuff in the week, most people have kits and shoes and socks they only use for race day. So put those all aside. That way, like when you get there, again, it's about relaxing. Go to the expo, get your stuff, get off your feet, turn on some Netflix. Hopefully Peaky Blinders is out, and watch that, enjoy yourself, and get ready to rumble.
I'm hearing Peaky's coming out in mid-October. No.
What? Oh,
yeah, I know.
I thought it was September.
I have a friend who's an insider at the
Sam Browning?
Yes, yep, British broadcast company.
podcast. Sweet. Well, I still got season 2 of Mindhunter to catch up on, so I might wait for that one.
That's out, I heard.
It is, yeah. And I turned it on to suggested to a few people, and of course they've like already blasted through it. I just detective. Yeah. Anyway, back on schedule.
Back to that point about the hunger. I just want to throw something in there. One of the things I do, and this is a good time to do it too, is whenever I get hungry, like I said, I always go drink water first, and sometimes that quells the hunger, and that shows you maybe that you're actually dehydrated. And I think this is a really big point that we need to be fluids. Have to go heavy right now too.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
heavy.
I noticed it even yesterday. What a difference it can make. Yeah, I had a split run yesterday, and I felt a little kind of gassed after split run 1 in the morning, and then I just started drinking a lot of water from that point all the way up to when I got back out there, and I surprisingly felt pretty good. I think that that really matters. Dehydration. It's so easy to be dehydrated in the morning after sleeping, and then reaching for coffee, and next thing you know, you're behind the 8 ball. So just pay attention to that. It's like one of my biggest things.
Pay attention. Don't skimp. And again, I think that like just the pay attention part, I think is a great like additional kind of segue into things to focus on. And while I said, I really suggest that athletes be flexible, you still have to pay attention. You still have to be purposeful. You still have to be specific. You can't just get lazy with everything. Because that's most athletes' thing. It's like, oh, it's taper time, baby. I'm going to eat a little more. I've earned it. I don't need to, I'll just take a couple days off, and then I'll just skip this, and I'll skip this. And then your body gets out of its mode and out of its routine. It's like, whoa, you're like, well, you still got to remind it that it needs to work out. And so you still need to treat it like the machine you want it to be on race day. Don't just neglect it, right? It's like the person who's gonna, it's kind of like when you buy a house and when you get ready to sell a house. That's like that month window of when you first buy it and that month window of when you sell it are like the best it's ever gonna look. Everything in between is like, yeah, I'm totally gonna keep it up. And then the next thing you're like, yeah, I'll probably get to it next week. I'll probably get it next week. And things kind of get like neglected, and things. It's the same with getting a new car. But when you have to depend on your body to do all these things, and again, perform the way you want it to on race day, you need to treat it like that. And you can't just neglect it during taper either. That, if anything, that's the time to get things taken care of.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean going to like 5 after hours mixers.
Yeah, exactly. You're having a few too many, or it also doesn't mean getting 17 massage treatments, 5 chiropractic adjustments, and 3 ART sessions. Like, it doesn't mean that either. And again, I'm a fan of the occasional massage, but please, for the love of all things holy, don't get one race week. I always say like 2 weeks out is a max, especially if you don't know. If there's too many unknowns, if you don't know the masseuse and that masseuse doesn't know you and your body, then please, for all things, do not get one the week of the race. I've had too many athletes just in training be so sore from a massage, or even tweak something because some massage person who got some certification at the local Massage Envy decided to try this new stretch on Timmy Sue, and the next thing you know, Timmy Sue can't walk for 4 days because they have a strain. So just be careful. Go to somebody you know. If you're married, make your spouse do it, and just be careful. And again, just treat your body the way you would always do it. Don't do anything. Just like you don't try anything new on race day, don't try anything new on race week. Don't get some stranger to manipulate and stretch and contort your body just because you think it's going to make you feel better. I mean, there's very limited research anyway that massages are a performance enhancer. Most of it's placebo effect, but do it if it makes you feel better. Do it, but please do it 2 weeks out. Don't do it the week of the race. And that's why I'm also like a huge don't walk up to some random stranger at an Ironman Expo like, hey man, fix me up for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
the person has no idea who you are. The day or two before race is the worst idea ever. Has to be somebody you know. Again, that's why you see they can't afford it, but somebody pays for it. It's like you see the best athletes in the world when they go compete at the Olympics or World Championships. the people who work on them on a day-to-day basis, they come with them. They come over to Kona. They go to the Olympics. They're not just getting some random Joe at the local, corner massage place to give them a massage and take care of their body. You know your body better than anybody. You take care of it. Hydrate, fuel yourself, stay on nutrition, practice everything, and then visualize. Visualize the race day. Visualize how you're going to execute. Get things right. And again, that's also what like the end of the taper and even the end of kind of this grind is supposed to be about, is visualizing the thoughts, the feelings, and how you're going to execute on race day, and having those last few rides and runs give you that feeling of confidence. And while it's not going to be the full distance, no matter what it is from sprint to full, you have to have that. I love for athletes to have that feeling of execution and restraint. I did it, I executed, and I held back, because that is also the theme of race day. Execute and hold back. And then you want to save your finishing touches for race day. And I think that's, again, another thing that a lot of athletes I've come across in the past or that I work with now that have done than they used to do it, is those last few rides are just not very purposeful. They're just kind of like make your way through group rides, doing this and that, which again isn't the worst thing, but I sent an email out to a lot of athletes that we have racing in Wisconsin that are doing a longer ride and run this weekend. And I said, listen, be in your full-on race gear, race kit, race wheels, race setup, eat the exact thing you plan on eating race morning that you plan on eating the night before. The only caveat I did give was, please don't wear your race helmet, like if it's an aero helmet, if the temp's going to be above 85, because I think that'll just be more of a detriment to your execution, and mainly because I don't expect it to be 85 or 90 in Wisconsin. If I did expect it to be that temp, then I would have suggested still wear it. And then again, for the run that a lot of them have the next day is like, hey, I want you to execute this run, but I want you to leave this run feeling like I got more to give, and then stop. Because that again is like the feeling you want to have. You don't want to make like one of these. And again, that's why I'm such a proponent of feeling good about things and doing things the best you can and executing and allowing yourself to have that feeling of continuous and repetitive execution, because it just kind of stamps into your memory like, this is what we do, this is how we execute. And that's something I take immense pride in trying to work with and teach the athletes that I have the pleasure of working with. Is we might not always be the best athlete. We might not be the best person on a given day with the best fitness, but the person with their best fitness but can execute it to their best ability is almost always going to beat the person with better fitness and poor execution. And it just teaches athletes a lot. And I really I want athletes that we work with to be smart and leave the ego at home and just be smart and tactical and execute things properly.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah, you talk about execution and restraint a lot, and it's one of those things that you can hear over and over, and sometimes it's deceptive or it's tricky to execute that, because like yesterday I had that split run, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone out on a run, felt a little bit shaky at first, and then about 5 miles in, I'm like, oh man, I am going to rip this up. And then towards the end of that particular run, I was like, oh, it usually happens around like mile 7, 8, 9. It's like, man, I have a long ways to go yet. I mean, it's almost
about 20 miles.
Yeah, the marathon thing is so weird, because it really does. It's like, man, I feel good. Like you feel like you've been running a long time, and then you realize that it's been like 5 miles. And
right,
you've
exactly.
got 20 miles to go. So
exactly.
That to me is always the wake up call. And after many, many times of kind of fallen prey to how that trick, I'm starting to get it a little bit. It's like, man, you got to find a pace where you can keep that thing for a long ass time. It's not a half marathon. It's like.
Yeah, no, it is. Technically it is, Mike. It is half a marathon.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, what I see, I mean, it is. It's forever. I mean, it really is. It is a long long way. And it's funny that like when you finally like get into the race, when you make that second loop, you're like, I've just got a half left. Right? But that first half seems like forever. It's just hard to kind of compartmentalize what that is in the scheme of things and how long of a day it really is, because you just got done doing something already, and it's like you get off the bike 120 miles and you're like, thank God I'm off that bike. Oh yay, now I get to go run a marathon. And you're like, oh, this is a long time. And you have to have those feelings, like you said, of like restraining yourself and feeling like you nailed these runs to where, again, fitness is what's going to dictate a lot of things on race day, but it's your execution and your effort that are going to be the ultimate kind of outliers in a great day or an average day, because you'll never know how your body's going to respond. It's about who you are and who's driving that fitness, a person making good decisions or a person making bad decisions. And so when the last few workouts leading up to a race, you can end a run or end a ride and say, Coach, I nailed it. Meaning I nailed the execution, not I hit some like random expected miles per hour on the bike or some random pace on the run. It was like, dude, I got this. I nailed it. I can execute to the best of my ability, which you have no idea what it will be on race day. It could be fitness that you've never dreamed of, or it can be a struggle. Like if you've ever done a full or even a 7.3, you know that you just have no idea what your body's even going to give you till like, around mile 80 of the bike or around like mile like 7-10 of the run. It's like you have to wait that long to know who you are on race day. And that is so hard to wait for, and I think it just takes so much patience, but the more patience you can show during a training, the more apt you are to show that patience on race day. I mean, you've always been really good at that in terms of being patient on race day and just kind of letting things come. You've always been, not anti-tech, but very much like, I know me and I know what I need and I know what I don't need. So let me make the decisions that I think is best for Mike in this scenario, and then let's go from there. And that always leads to good results and putting your give me your phrase, usually good results, but it always puts you in the best position than had you decided something differently or gone off an arbitrary number, or even if coach gives you a number and you're not feeling it, to blindly stick to it no matter what. And not dial it back and think, listen, like coach isn't in my brain, coach isn't in my body, he doesn't know me, I know me, let me do my own thing and be smart about it, and then know that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, you're right, man. I think for the most part, I've probably done about as well as I could on most of my races. And I think that a lot of it is because of that, because I'd keep an eye on that constantly, on that needle of, where am I? What do I have left? What do I have to do here? And unfortunately, I think for me, it's a lot of times it has come down to I probably haven't quite had the run shape that I had hoped for in the past. That's what I think. I don't know, because it sort of feels like, and I don't know if this translates back into maybe I did push the bike too hard, because that happens too a little bit. I think I have. Mm-hmm. I sort of just the thing about Ironman, and we talk patience all the time, and we talk the execution, and it's so crucial. But there are times I feel like when you have to flip a different switch of like, hey man, you can't start falling back right now. Where it's sort of like maybe let's say 70% is your number for that day, just in general, as far as like what you want to push out there on an average. And then I think there are many times when we fall into this, like you never know what you're going to feel like on Ironman day. And sometimes like if you let the feeling of, man, I'm cooked, I'm going to be beat here, get you, and all of a sudden you start falling back into 60 and then 58, and you might have something left, but there's something mental going on there. I think there's a lot of times when I have in the past kind of forced myself back up into that 70, because the reality is it's tough, like you're saying, it's that effort piece is like you might have to give more like 90% to get to your 70% at certain points.
Right.
So you have to keep that in mind. I think that's just that tough it out piece that I always try to incorporate in people's heads too. It's like, yeah, that sounds great. You got a great plan here, but it's going to be hard at the end. And you have to really dig deep, a bunch of times probably.
It's limiting. It's such a great point. But it's also knowing when you hop in the water, there's only so much of that tough it out, those tough it out minutes that you have on a race day. And it's like, to your point, like to go that extra, I guess extra mile, push that extra effort to hold it. You want that to be, I can hold this, tough it out till the end, not this is mile 30 of the bike, I need to tough it out right now to keep pace, because then you're toast. I think you need to be able to be resilient, and because we've always said this, is that you're going to, and I try to tell athletes before every race, that's like this. It's like, I'm going to tell you something right now. You're going to feel awesome, and you're going to feel terrible. You're going to feel like you can finish with a PR, and you're going to feel like you should DNF. You're going to have all those feelings over the course of a race. You're going to have all the ups and downs, all the in-betweens, because it's just a long day. And you got to be prepared for those. So in those moments of emotional and mental questions of, can I do this, or am I fit for this, or am I on track, you have to be kind of show that mental and emotional resilience of, yeah, I do have this and I can do this. Let me keep going. And then obviously that feeling fades. And then on the flip side, you have to show that mental and emotional restraint when you find yourself just like cruising it at mile 7, you're like, oh baby, time to smash it. And instead be like, you know what? No, I know how much I have to give today. And when I choose to give it, and when I choose to flip that switch, and when I choose to finally strike that match and burn it, I want to burn it down, and I want to burn it to the finish. I don't want it to flame out or dry out or evaporate by mile 10 of the run because I pulled the trigger too early and now I'm toast. You got to get like the best races I've ever ran, that I've ever executed. I have found myself like probably with only like 10% of the race left or even less, and thought to myself, this is all I have to give. And I don't, and this is like nothing to do with pace, nothing to do with anything. It's, I have this much to give. This is all I have, but I know that I can give this much and keep this effort until I have to stop. If you can find that point, and you can get to that point in the latest part of your race, you're destined for a great day. Because you have to get to that point to where, and again, like that's why you have to like you have to guard going to that well in training. You have to guard it, because there's only one or two times out of the course where you got to ask your body to go to that well and to dig that deep and to be that person and to have that mindset. You can't do it all the time, because it'll crush you. It'll just wear on you. It wears on you mentally, emotionally, and physically to just dig that deep, and to put yourself in that position of, I got this, and I can lay it out there for this long. So the longer you can delay that, not only the better are you going to set yourself up for success, but I think the more confidence you're actually going to have when you actually do it. Because you can actually truly think, I haven't done this all year, but I've been saving for this moment, and I can do it, and I can hold this for until I don't have to anymore. And that's when I cross the finish line. And that is almost always when athletes perform to their best of their ability, is when they use that at the end and they push through. And again, you don't want to have to use that as a means to get through miles 50 and 60, or even the first 5 miles. You want to save that. And it takes practice, but there is a huge also mental and emotional toll that it can take on you.
It's hard, man. It's hard to come out of that water, for example, and get on that bike and just be okay with the idea of like, hey, let's spend the next 5 miles kind of getting our wits about us, because there's always all around you, you hear that click, click, and the race wheels and the
exactly the fast disc race wheels just kind of zooming
it's like,
by.
man, that bike was loud, and those guys just get out of their saddle and they're just putting it down from get go, and these Uber bikers, and it's just like in the swim too. I mean, it's always so tempting to follow somebody else because you feel like there's just, for me, it's just a feeling of like, man, I'm getting behind, or am I giving it what I need to be giving? But in the water, normally you're given way more than you think in the beginning, for sure, and then people come swimming by you and you're like, man, I can't. And those decisions are so critical in the beginning because we talk about all the time, but like when you start that swim, you're going faster, way faster than you think. It's just the hardest one to kind of gauge. Mm-hmm. And that's when the pattern can start. So it's like, how do you really slow that down? And over the course of time, it's like, I talk about these, dig deep moments, and I don't dig to 100. I just dig a little bit to kind of get maybe a momentum back. That's what I think about a lot, is like momentum. Like get to, just grind, get to the top of this hill, for example, get over it and get the momentum, because like if you just get right to the top of a bike hill and kind of go, whew, man, well, give it, you're going to be breathing hard, breathe a little bit, harder than maybe normal sometimes on some of these hills, but get over it, keep that deep breath going until you get over and down on the way down, because that's the place where you can kind of make up and get that momentum back. For me, it's like taking advantage of the course. I've been thinking about that a lot of times, just taking what the course gives you to. Mm-hmm. And it's such a, I think, underrated principle sometimes, is that, you can't beat the course. You just have to race the course. And there's opportunity there. There's challenge and there's opportunity. So you have to understand, you have to stay within yourself when the course is not going to be your friend. And when it's like, hey, here's a little, free pass, go for it a little bit. I'm not saying overdo your effort, but like take advantage of those things. Mm-hmm. Same with like those beautiful gradual run down hills that aren't steep, but it's like, hopefully you're in good enough shape where you can, let the, gravity kind of give you a little bit,
I mean, more people lose, especially in a course like Louisville, Louisville and Wisconsin, who have a lot of short pinchers. I see people lose probably like 5 to 10 minutes on those courses alone by how they manage and execute the last 5 meters of a hill and the next 5 meters going down that hill. Because so many athletes get to the crest of a hill, those last 5 meters, and ease up because they've finally gotten to the top. And they lose all momentum. And then they get to the top of the hill basically like coasting, and then they wonder why they've lost all momentum going downhill. Mm-hmm. When you have to power over the hill, use that momentum, use that energy, use that I mean, that's like the only time I've ever like told somebody, like, yes, it's okay to get out of the saddle, is like the last like 2 or 3 pedal strokes at the crest of a hill to keep your momentum to get you up and over, because it's going to increase your downhill speed without having to do any extra work. Versus, I'm almost to the top. You can see, you can watch people's faces and watch their pedal. Like they start to like gear down, like, I've got this, and now I'm at the hill, and now I'm almost stopped at my tracks. Oh, look, let me try to pedal harder now to go downhill. You got to pedal over the top of the hills. You can't you can't let them dictate it. You have to pedal up and over and through the uphill to get you to going down to where you can actually use it to the best of its ability and the best of your ability as a cyclist. Just please, for the love of all things, don't just stop at the top. Pedal through at least 5 to 6 pedal strokes and then take care of the downhill. But again, like, don't just, it's like the person who walks a downhill, because they went too hard going on an uphill. It's like, please, just like, being able to execute running a downhill will save you so much energy and increase your pace so much than trying to like run the uphill like you're, back in your heyday at high school football tryouts. Like, just be smart with how you execute the day. And again, like you said, try to beat the course. And you can't just take things lightly, and you can't just forget those small little moments that can add up. Like, I know when we had Starkey on, he was like, I know every single turn. And I think he even said, or we kind of like hypothesized, that he probably gains like, 5 or 10 minutes on his competitors by knowing every single turn and being able to navigate a technical course versus somebody who's not a technical. Because again, if you think about it, cycling is all about slowing down and keeping your momentum, and how much effort there is to start and stop or keep going. And it takes so much more effort to restart than it does to keep momentum. And so athletes who can take corners well and keep their momentum are going to use so much less energy than an athlete who has to brake so heavily to go into a corner and then start back up again. And those surges take, and I mean, that's why Wisconsin's such a hard course, because there's so many turns. And I mean, this will be your third time racing it. I've coached a lot of athletes on it, and I've raced it once, is that not only there are a ton of turns, but like all your little fun downhills, hello, turn, at the bottom. It's not like you get to go like screaming down at the bottom the whole time. It's got like a turn, or you're climbing up a short pincher and then you have a turn and you got to turn right. And it's just, it's a bike course that where the person who can keep the most momentum consistently for the longest has the best chance of having the best day.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I've told this story before, but my first time I was having trouble. It probably was operator error, but I was having trouble using the big ring at all, and I used I rode that whole course in my small ring.
I know, I remember.
Which is like, and I rode it under 6, and it was a lot of that. It was like I was in my small. I was never in the quote unquote wrong gear going uphill. You know what I mean? So I didn't get caught in like one of those situations where you have to surge. Yeah. And I was always going up, and I was like probably pretty patient. I might, I tend to be a little aggressive going uphill sometimes, but I was certainly had what it took to get over, and then I would just pedal as like, over the hill and as far as I could. And then at some point I couldn't pedal anymore, so I had to coast down a lot of those hills. And so there is a lot of free momentum out there. I'm not saying coast every single hill, but I think I probably coasted most of them, and I still came in, under 6. So I'm not saying that's going to be my strategy again, but it's interesting to think about as far as taking what the course gives.
Well, taking what the course gives, but also what you were able to save to have a good run day.
Right.
I mean, you
it may have saved me for sure.
I think it did save you, and I think because what you were doing, you were maneuvering the hills and taking what they gave you. You weren't mashing gears. And a lot of people will fight their gears versus riding the hills. Big difference. Then mashing your gears and using a lot of energy to go probably the same speed. I think you'll all see this. No matter what course you do, I mean, as long as it's a hilly course, you'll be on a hill. I mean, I've seen it at Louisville like a million times. You'll be up Louisville or Wisconsin. You'll be spinning your way up a hill, and you'll pass this person just like smashing it in their big ring for God knows why. And they're putting out all this effort to just smash it while you're just spinning your way up. And then, listen, man, those catch up to you. I mean, you're going to have to get to a point where, during a course, you're going to have to probably put more effort in than you want to. But again, that's where like deep strength work comes into handy, and riding a lot of hills comes in handy. But yeah, I mean, I remember you saying that it's like that you got kind of stuck in the small ring, and you decided to kind of like roll with it. And it's kind of funny because that you getting stuck in that ring that day was also like one of the first times as a coach I can remember, not as an athlete, but as a coach, not letting my ego dictate what I wanted to say or do. Because I remember there's this photo somewhere of you and I, but you were coming around the corner at that high school, and you were making really good time, and I knew you were on pace for a really good day, and I think I was actually barefoot at this moment.
You were.
But I was barefoot, and I was hanging out with your mom and brother and Allie and everybody else, and I took off running to kind of run with you as you were coming around the corner, and I left to sprint towards you. And when I had originally left, my intention was to tell you to push it and lay down the hammer. because you were having such a good day, and I knew things were kind of going to would unfold well for you. And then as soon as you got to me, I said, keep it calm.
Yeah, you said
Stay
be patient.
I said, be patient. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't mean to say
That's not what I was thinking.
That's not what I was thinking.
That's how grounded that is for you, but yeah.
I know, yeah. But
it's a good thing you did say that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I did it.
Well, I mean, that was, what's that, mile 90-ish, maybe?
Or just before, because you're about to head back into town on what people love to like tell themselves in training is just a downhill the rest of the way home. It's like, they look at like the course elevation map, like, I really only got to train. Like, you'd be shocked how many times you actually hear this. If you look at the course profile, I really only have to train for like 80 to 85 miles. Because if you look at the course profile, it's basically like a downhill. And to be fair, if you look at the map, it does kind of look like that. I mean, it is technically negative elevation. I think like 100 feet or something. So in theory, that's correct. I mean, the Louisville is the same way. But what people don't understand, or for whatever story they want to tell themselves, is that a lot of them are going to be so beat up by the time they get to that point, that's not going to matter. But they're going to be sitting up on their horns, wishing they were, in arrow. But what usually happens on that course is that last 20 miles is a what?
What?
As a headwind.
Oh yeah. I was for sure.
Like, whoa,
how much elevation does that add?
Dude, there is nothing. Listen, man, there's nothing worse than a headwind when you feel good. Much less a headwind with 25 miles to go at the end of an Ironman, when not just your legs are tired, but your arms, your shoulders, your neck. That's when you want to get up and stretch and kind of get out of your saddle and move around a little bit, because you've been an arrow all day and you've been trying to be small, and then you got to sit up like a sailboat and just catch the wind, and then you're like, oh my God, this is so much harder. It's that last 20 miles where I remember I've tracked people before, and you can catch 50, 60, 100 people the last 10 miles of that race, or of that bike course, because people are so toast and are having to sit up from having poor positions and not spending enough time in the saddle that the headwind just eats them alive. And there's nothing more demoralizing than getting off the bike those last 5 or 10 miles feeling like I just got beat down. And you can either take that feeling into T2, or you can take that feeling of maybe not smashing it and crushing it, but you can take that feeling of, man, I passed like a lot more people than they passed me the last 10 miles. Like, to me, there is no better feeling, because it really, what it does, it just kind of gives you a glimpse of what you're about to do on the run course. Like, you've been passed all day. That's fine. It's not how I start, it's how you finish. You've been passed all day, but for the rest of the race, all I get to do is pass. And it takes you out of yourself. And I mean, we all know this. It's not even like an equatable percentage, I think, between the feeling and the emotion and the confidence that passing someone gives you versus like the demoralizing feel of having everyone pass you. It's not even the same spectrum. And that's the taste you can get the last 10 miles of the bike, if you pace things correctly and if you're smart about it and if you've trained well.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that bike course a lot, because it's, there are some bike courses where you see, my age group, the 55 plus area, the kind of the top bike splits are like low 5 hours type deal sometimes. And on some courses, I shouldn't say all, but like at Wisconsin, it's usually like 5:30 is about as good as it gets up there for even the fastest guys. It's like, so you can't, there's such a fine line between trying to make up time up there and to think, like for me, I think my best is just under 6 hours. And, I've been trying to get my mind wrapped around like, hey, it's going to be an unbelievably awesome day if you cut 10 minutes off of that, and have to be accepting of that, because you just can't score really easily up there. I always say score. Like it's like you can't, it's just like there's not a lot of room to and really be faster, because it's little things, and that 10 minutes versus trying to do 20 or something like that could be the biggest mistake ever. And it's just, I think that applies across the board, obviously, but it's so frustrating.
It sounds like it's keeping you up at night, man.
Nah, not really, but you know what I'm saying, though, right? It's like you can think all you want about like crushing that bike course, but you just can't.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. And again, it's like that, being in the small ring that day, that was like the ultimate test of patience for me, because it was a great forced patience in a way. So it's like, whenever there's a doubt, don't mash, basically.
Yeah, seriously, don't mash. Don't mash.
Don't mash.
That's about it for today.
Yeah, it is. That is about it.
It has been, but hey, even more and more excited as we get going towards this race. I was just kind of going through some Training Peaks this morning. I was like, man, there is a lot of action the next few weeks with tons of races, and I know there's a lot of people racing all over the place, doing all kinds of different races. And again, just as a reminder, I know that we don't often talk around this time of year around about sprint and Olympic distance triathlon and stuff, and we're definitely in tune with that. And I coach a lot of athletes who just do sprint and Olympic races. We usually talk about what's on top of mind, and I still think it's relative to the distance that you're in terms of the mental approach. So I do want to, make sure that we, that I mention that every once in a while. And at some point I do want to make more of a focus on doing, some more specific episodes and podcasts geared towards that shorter distance racing.
Maybe after Wisconsin, when that's what I'm doing from that point on.
Yeah, for life.
Sprints and oldies.
Yeah, it's like the best, for the most commonly heard phrase in the food tent after a race is, "Yep, I think I'm just going to do short course next year." And it's like everyone's favorite phrase is like, "Yeah, I'm probably just going to stick to like 70.3s or oldies next year." And like, yeah, sure you will. I'll give you 4 days before you post a registration screenshot on Facebook. But yeah, so we do want to cover that again. But I think, hopefully, at least the mental approaches and the execution, how you think about things, you can apply those to everything. We are inching ever so closely to our 300th episode, which, again, is something that I think is incredibly humbling for both you and I, in terms of just the fact that we've been able to do this for as long as we have. As consistent as we've been, and just the memories that we've been able to create, the people we've been able to meet, the experiences we've been able to have just from the fact that we've started this podcast, and the connections, and just it's been, hey man, it's been a ride of a lifetime.
For sure.
Yeah, I can speak for both of us, and I floated this idea out to you a few days ago, and we've never done it, but I honestly can't think of a better way to spend our 300th episode than with some of our listeners. So we can't promise it's going to be the greatest live podcast in the history of live podcasts. It's probably going to be mediocrely awesome. But we are going to be doing our 300th podcast in Madison. We will make it a live podcast, kind of a semi roundtable Q&A. You can ask anything. Most people there obviously will be doing the race, but it's going to be in Madison. It's going to be that Friday, right before the event, which is going to be September the 6th. Yeah, it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's going to be at the Best Western Premier Park Hotel, second floor. Again, we'll start at around 10. It'll be myself, Mike, and then also one of our athletes that I've been working with for a while, Jessica Jacobs, who is also coincidentally the 2011 Ironman Wisconsin professional champion. So she'll have a lot of course insight. She's from the area. She knows the course probably better than anyone. You've done the race. This will be your third time. I've raced it. I've coached, I think, probably 30 or 40 people to finish it, and multiple podiums at the event. So we know the event, we know the venue, we know how to execute. So if you're there, it's not just a team thing. It's not just a club thing. It's not just even a closed, Crushing Iron Facebook group thing. But I'll be posting a Facebook event kind of link in our closed group, which is, if you're not in there yet and you'd like to be, it is a Crushing Iron group on Facebook, and we'll let you in, and I'll post that in there sometime today with the address and info. I think the room has seating for like 100, so we'll have plenty of room because there'll probably be 15 of us in there. But honestly, we would love for you just to come.
Me, you, and Jessica.
Exactly, me, you, and Jessica, recording a live podcast like every other podcast with just us. But we know, honestly, we
like the maintenance guy.
Exactly. I asked when I was talking to the lady this morning, she was like, how many seats do you need? And I was like, listen, room is good, and we would love for a lot of people to show up just because we love meeting our listeners and we love hearing from them, and it's great for you and I, but you can anticipate about 3 to 4. I'm just kidding. Honestly, we have a ton of athletes racing, and I know a lot of people listening to this podcast will be there. So whether you're racing or spectating or just want to swing by and come in and say hi and ask any question, even if it's not race specific, it's just any question you want, we'll try to cover as many as we can. And I look forward to it. I think it'll be fun. But we will do that. And again, I'll post a link to a Facebook event later today in our closed group. And then if you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, just want more info on the other things we can do, you can email Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. You can always email me, C26coach@gmail.com. And if you want to visit and haven't, you can always check out our one-stop shop, which is crushingiron.com. It has all the info, training, coaching packages, swim analysis, our club, gear, our training camps that are selling out for next year already, and everything that we do. Check it out, peruse, and hopefully you find something that you need. And Mike and I hope to see a lot of you in Madison in 2 weeks.
Yeah, really do look forward to meeting people and seeing people up there, especially Friday. Saturday I may be a little bit ghosting, but day before the race I'll be kind of...
Yeah, as you should be. I'll be there. I'm tentatively speaking, if I feel like there's enough interest. I know we have a lot of athletes racing, but I'll probably try and schedule some sort of early Friday morning or Saturday morning open water swim down there, and I'm be more than happy to give out any tips and tricks I can for last minute people, and do what I can to help anybody out, regardless of if they're a coached athlete or not. Just happy to help and happy to be there and enjoying my time in Madison.
Very cool, man. I like that.
All right, buddy.
Excited. All right, man. Well, have a great day, and I'll be talking to you. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yep. See you, dude. See you.